Hey, how are we doing? I'm going live on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and it looks like it's not working on X. And this is just as much about trying something new here as it is about coming on and just saying hello and getting caught up. Looks like we're doing good. We're live on Instagram. Let me check here and make sure we're live on Facebook. How are we doing here? Doesn't look like nobody's popped on yet. On podcast. Here we go. We got one person on, and it's showing that I'm live. Yes, looking good. All right. If you're just jumping on, it looks like we got a comment here. So jump on here and say hello. Matt Bankston, what's going on, buddy? Appreciate you stopping in. Got another person jumping on and would love for, again, if you're just jumping on, want you to know that this is just as much about me testing something out as it is about me actually bringing some sort of substance to tell you about what's going on with me and what's coming up in the future. So if you are seeing this, drop a note here in the comments and say hello. And so I appreciate Matt Bankston doing that as he did right there. See how see how crazy this is getting very advanced here with technology. So anyway, haven't done the Papa Ron podcast in almost a year, and I put out a blog about that. I would love for you to check that out. It really gets into detail. If you go over to paparonradio.com. As a matter of fact, let me just kind of add that if I can. I'm going to do this here. Create a banner, paparonradio.com. How about that? Add the banner. Here we go. So go over to paparonradio.com when you get a chance. There's a click on blog, and there you're going to see some new information about why there hasn't been a Papa Ron podcast in almost a year. And so it's kind of personal, but at least gives you an update. But the good news is that the Papa Ron podcast is coming back. Now, I don't know exactly when. There are a few things that I'm working out. In fact, there is something that I think has the potential, and I'm even hesitant to say anything about this, but has the potential to be really, 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 really big, like globally big. Came across something over the last month that I'm still working on, trying to see how much weight it carries. I think and believe in my heart that it carries a lot of weight. But when this podcast comes out, it is going to be monstrous. I think it's going to be monstrous. So all that to be said, there is something new on the horizon, and I'm excited to share it with everybody. But if you have not yet seen or heard why there hasn't been a Papa Ron podcast, I would love for you to check out that blog over at paparonradio.com right there. I don't know how to do that right there. Right there. Stop in with the comments. I only got 3 people watching right now. Again, I'm kind of testing out this software because the goal here in the future is to do more lives and to do more scheduled lives, kind of a benchmark of things, and kind of expand on the brand, the Papa Ron Radio brand or the Papa Ron podcast brand. And would love for you to, and again, explains all of that in the blog that I came out with on, I guess it was a couple weeks ago. So check that out. If you are jumping on here like Matt did, I would love, so Matt jumped in. He said, howdy. You got a question? I would love to hear from you. There's 4 people watching, and I greatly appreciate that. Thank you for your time, and say hello. I would love for you to jump on and say hello or ask a question or interact, because I am as much testing this thing out as I am wanting to share the information of what's been kind of going on here in the past. So would love to hear from you. We are live right now on Facebook, on YouTube, and Instagram. It looks like in order for me to be live, and I'm just now learning this, in order for me to be live on X, they want some money from me. So I will need to potentially subscribe to their upgraded services in order for me to do lives. Anyway, so yeah, the Papa Ron podcast was clicking along, doing really, really well. And again, I allude to all of this in the blog, which you should check out at paparonradio.com. Look at there. We got some people jumping on there on Instagram. I've got multiple screens going on here. Again, this is kind of a trial, so I'm checking this out, but I appreciate those people on Instagram that are watching live right now. The Papa Ron podcast was clicking along, doing very, very well. And I'm going to get a little vulnerable, if you will. I don't want to give away too much information because I'd really like for you to read the blog. But this podcast was actually inspired because of a thing that I went through a handful of years ago, which all men hate talking about, absolutely despise talking about, because it shows, we think as men, it shows weakness, it shows vulnerability, it shows, I don't know, a lack of strength. So anyway, I went through depression. I went through a really tough time a few years ago, and I was trying to find my way, and I was challenged by a friend to start the podcast to give myself some self-worth again. And it worked. Things were doing, I learned in the process of all of that I had a testimony, and I had a network of people who had a testimony and a story of redemption. And man, there were some just awesome stories. And I should use this platform as an opportunity to give people hope. And so that's what we did. Partnered with Jillian Gregg, my old coworker at Q104 from back in the day. And we were clicking along, doing pretty well, doing the best we could with the time we had available as being family men and having other business ventures. And so the truth of the matter is that I slipped again. And it was a different kind of slip. There was different reasons for why I slipped. And when I say slipped, I just got back into a spot where I could not give my whole heart to the podcast in the capacity that it deserved. When this podcast invites guests who have a testimony, they have a heartfelt story, they have a story of redemption, it was so hard for me to stay focused on what these people were talking about that I would typically care to hear them talk about. It was hard for me to do it because I was drowning in my own crap, is basically what it comes down to. And so I decided that in the process of all of that, I needed to, I learned from the last step. I learned that I needed to reprioritize and I needed to take time for myself. And I decided that I was going to do that. And so I put the podcast on the shelf for about the last year. I decided in over some prayer and just in my journey of trying to get more connected spiritually, that I needed to take that time for myself and my family and kind of reevaluate what I was doing with this and in the direction I wanted to go. So love Jillian to death. She's will always be near and dear to my heart. She was very instrumental in helping me through my spiritual journey early on after the first depression stint. And there will be times where I'm still going to lean on her through maybe doing this podcast or, spiritually. So nothing but great things to say, but I am going to move on to do this thing on my own and possibly having guest, kind of like a guest host from time to time. And so she might, if she takes me up on it, come back to do something like that. But I wanted to move this thing in a little bit different direction and kind of expand on the brand. And it's just kind of what fell on my heart. And that is what is explained if you go to paparonradio.com and you click on, you could click on the blog. Matt Bankston says it's hard to talk about it, but it has, let me just click on this. Here we go. It's hard to talk about, but it has helped a lot of us. So I appreciate you saying that, Matt. Matt is a loyal fan of the Papa Ron podcast and has shared his own personal testimony with me, of which then, is private, and I'm not going to go into that, but I just appreciate him and all of his support. So anyway, you can learn more about what's going on there. But again, for me jumping on live, there's been some new advancements in technology with this particular piece of software that I use. And so I was wanting to kind of try that out and use this as an opportunity to promote, to figure this out and promote the blog. That's the thing this is why I'm doing a test run right here, because I'm trying to figure out how this thing works and then have a my mind and my mouth going in this direction while I'm distracted over here and messing with this thing. So anyway, probably going to wrap this up because I don't have much more to say other than that. And this was just as much about trying to figure out how this thing works as it was to give you an update of where I'm at with this journey. But there is the ability for me to simulcast some of this stuff on all of our platforms, and wanted to take the shot at doing that. So thank you guys for checking in. Again, go to paparonradio.com, click on blog. That's going to give you a detailed description of what's going on with the Papa Ron podcast. And then I'll just say this in closing. I am so excited to bring this thing back. And when it comes back, it's coming back with this is probably a terrible analogy, but it's coming back with a wrecking ball. It's coming back with this. It's coming back with a vengeance. How about that? If the information that I have is accurate, and I do believe it is, and if all of this checks all the boxes check, and it's going to take a little bit of time for me to do that, the guest that I'm going to have, the story that he's going to share, and the information that he's going to provide is going to blow your mind. Absolutely blow your mind. It is not just something, this thing has an impact on every single person in the world. This is global. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So, keep it locked here. Tell your friends about it. Hey, Papa Ron podcast is coming back. There's something big on the horizon. Make sure you're following on Instagram. Make sure you're following on YouTube. Make sure you're following on X. Make sure you're following on Instagram. Make sure you're following on TikTok. Where else am I? I guess that's it. Besides all the social platform or all the podcast platforms. So there's something on the horizon that I'm excited to share with everybody. And I hope that you will follow along on the journey as we get ready to share that with you in the near future. All that to be said, thank you for your patience. Those of you who are hardcore fans, thank you for your patience. And I hope that you're getting a little excited as I'm excited to bring this back. It's coming up in the near future on the Papa Ron podcast. Have a good rest of your day.